Nobody beats Talking Joe, an international podcast.
Brand new.
Hey, we're talking brand new Joe. Hey, we're on a brand new show. Deep dives, blow by blow. Spotting Uzis and crossbow. Like a buzzball or pogo. Got ninjas like Dom Shadow. Comics for how I spend my dough. We're coming to you in stereo. It's time for Talking Joe. With Mark and Tim, here we go.
Brand new.
Talking Joe is on the air.
Hey, it's me, Mark, and welcome to Talking Joe, the comics podcast that we talk about G.I. Joe on. So today we are talking about G.I. Joe issue number 9, released just this last week. Gone Wednesday, August the 20th, the year of our Lord, 2025. Baroness versus Covergirl. Meanwhile, has Cobra Commander and Destro's alliance reached its breaking point? But I will not be talking about this issue on my own. As always, I will be joined by my co-host. It's a real American Tim. It's Tim Finn.
Ooh. Hello,
There he
Mark,
is.
and hello, listeners. I am in a different place. I am at the beach today, making a small exception. Making a small exception.
The sea and the waves lapping on the shore there behind you, Tim. It's
Yes, people surfing and children building sandcastles, and I am taking a brief break with the kind permission of my better half to be on the show, so we are not skipping a week or having a delay or having an excellent but substitute host.
And I have just realised that I said we're talking about G.I. Joe issue number 9 in my preamble there. And I think all my graphics say issue number 9, but we're actually talking about G.I. Joe number 10. So please disregard the number 9 in my earlier statement and on that initial graphic. We are live. Mistakes do happen, as I am proving consistently. We are live, so that means you can interact with me and Tim, Joe, post your comments, and we'll share them during the stream, just like Shane, Talking Joe, just like Soul Bro Ryo. Let's go, gang. Infinite Entertainment is here. Hello, lads. I just want to give a quick shout out to Hound for being awesome. Let's see who else we've got. Matthew, good afternoon. And I think that's it. I thought Shane thought maybe Tim was broadcasting live from Paris, keeping things tied in and authentic. That's fantastic.
I'm actually watching an older couple as they walk together down the streets of Paris. And if I get a signal from Mark, I will have my birds assassinate them.
That's fantastic. All right, Infinite Entertainment says your bikini looks great. I'm glad you're getting into the beach vibe.
For those of you listening and not watching, I'm wearing my standard shirt.
Fantastic. Thanks to everyone in the comments. So what should we talk about first? Let's just do a bit of a catch up of what's going on around the Energon universe. And that means we get to play a jingle.
All around the skybound world, are you looking for some G.I. Joe? There's Autobots and Decepticons and creatures from the sacred ring. All we need is Energon, sweet Energon. There'll be Energon everywhere. There'll be robots swinging, aliens killing, and Decepticons in the streets. Yeah!
Yes, indeed. So the first thing I was going to mention was San Diego Comic Con. It's well in our rearview mirror now, but there was a lot of G.I. Joe news and discussion that went on there. There was the Kirkman panel. There was the Energon Universe panel, and there was also lots of sort of round tables that were recorded by various podcasting channels, etc. So do go and see some of those. I think the highlight for me out of all of those was the Hasbro roundtable that they had. Lenny, Tony, plus Joshua Williamson and Sean Makowitz from Skybound. Definitely seek that one out. It's very good. Bit of a deep dive, sort of rounded conversation all around what was happening in the Energon universe and how they approach some of that stuff. They did let slip that Josh's friend, he's got a friend called Jason who's acting as a bit of a consultant, and he was the one that suggested Colton Ritz as the character that became Chameleon. Some interesting insight that came out of that. They also talked about the process for coming up with Blood's poetry that maybe we'll also talk about a little bit in as we get to it. What else did he talk about? He said, Sean Makowitz saying that part of his role as sort of the senior editor was to make sure that where characters are introduced, they serve a purpose. So they're not just getting introduced willy-nilly, but can have a clear focus and a purpose for being in there. One of the funny things was Tony said, "We're talking about issue 18 with you. Didn't issue 9 just come out?" So it was a nice moment where sort of just, they're clearly thinking ahead and sort of there's so many characters, there's a wealth of characters, and they're saying first arc was basically Duke and Cobra Commander focused. The second arc is very much focused on Cover Girl and the Baroness, and then in the third arc they're returning to Duke and Cobra Commander again, which means that you can have these great characters with so much potential, but you just don't have the real estate to really give them much focus. So they talked about as Chameleon as one of the big characters they'd like to spend more time with, and just haven't really had the chance yet, but do have plans to. But I would like to know genuinely where their roadmap talks actually takes them to at this point, because they were sort of talking about plans up through past issue 30. So we will see. Does the idea that they're thinking so far ahead leave you a lot of confidence, Tim?
Yeah, and it jives with how I hear that Skybound works or wants to work, and that they are keeping this small with just these 3 monthly books makes that so much more possible. Just imagine if there were the 3 monthly books. I know there's also another G.I. Joe book, right, written by someone else. And then imagine if there was also a second Energon Universe, like a monthly Duke and Cobra Commander book, a monthly Night Force book, a special with Chameleon. That would be great. I would love it. People's wallets would not love it. Much of it would be well written, maybe all of it. Much of it would be drawn well, maybe all of it. But there would be some, slips in the schedule, or something would be, an issue would be drawn by someone else and it wouldn't match, or an issue would be late. And so that's one of the ways that you keep everything running on time, is you keep it very focused. My favorite bit of news out of Comic-Con International was that Tom Riley was coming back in a big way, and had signed an exclusive with Skybound. Exclusive. 10 years ago, there was some back and forth for a couple years where DC and Marvel were making announcements that they had signed artists as exclusives. Mm-hmm. And it was sometimes unclear what that meant. And it generally seemed to mean that artist would work for that publisher for 2 or 3 or 4 years, and not the other publisher, although there were always exceptions for something creator owned at Image or something for like covers for Boom or Dark Horse. It was really just about keeping a Marvel person from DC or a DC person from Marvel. And also they got it health insurance. And also that was sort of a guarantee that they would get some promotion and something high profile, you know, a run of covers and some big deal miniseries or opening arc. And Skybound has such a small footprint and such a small Energon Universe footprint. It's really surprising and exciting that Skybound is sort of treading in that similar water. I really wanted Tom Riley to come back specifically to G.I. Joe, if not the Energon Universe. I thought it might not be the monthly G.I. Joe, but rather the first event miniseries where some of these stories cross over, which again is just speculation. We don't know that that's happening. We just keep thinking it will. And I think it was sort of this within 3 days of each other. It was announced at Comic-Con International and also in the letters page of one of these issues, or the Skybound news page, that, you know, Riley was coming back.
Indeed, yeah, and he's coming back to the Dreadnought War, which is just going to be 6 issues or so of the main series, but they are making it feel like an event, not least because it's going to be double shipping each month, which is partly why they're able to think so far ahead in terms of the number of issues, because they're going to probably squeeze 6 issues into 3 months.
You know how you make just regular issues of a story seem like an event? You add the word war to the title. So what's going to happen in Void Rivals? The Quintesson War begins in issue 25. What will happen in G.I. Joe? The Dreadnought War beginning in issue 13. Let's see. Venom War was a Marvel miniseries, not in the regular Venom book. Civil War, of course, was a miniseries. But, you know, look what Skybound can do with that word.
And yeah, so another highlight for me in terms of the coverage, I mentioned this before, was the sort of the podcast offshoot of the sketched website news coverage. Off Panel, I think is the name of the podcast, with David Harper, and he had a long deep dive conversation with Robert Kirkman about Transformers and more besides. And what was curious about that conversation was that Kirkman said that he definitely wasn't a shoe-in to do Transformers with Daniel Warren Johnson leaving. He wanted, he'd like to do it, but he appreciates that he's only got so much time in his day, and he's very much an artist-focused writer. And it was Dan Mora getting locked in as the artist, which was the thing that kind of sealed the deal for him, that he wanted to be able to see what Dan Mora would do. And the other element that was particularly interesting was him saying that he didn't really necessarily want to reinvent the book with him joining. He wanted it to feel like a continuous book, that it wasn't going to be a jarring change of writer, that he very much wanted to keep to the same sort of feel, tone that that Daniel Warren Johnson has created so well. There's a question here from Solbro Ryu. Did they mention how long they estimate the EU to run? 5 years or possibly more? They're talking about being very ambitious, and they want it to run and run and run. Kirkman definitely has been talking about hoping to get to issue 100 on this run. So I think they are expecting it to keep on going. Infinite Entertainment Center, am I misremembering, or was the Joe side announced a 6 miniseries leading into a main book? My recollection was that it was just 4, and they have stuck to that, but feel free to correct if you want to dig out that original press release. But I do think it was that.
It's funny that you mentioned this idea that Kirkman wanted Transformers to feel like sort of the same book. Not that this house ad contradicts that, but the inside back cover of today's issue of G.I. Joe, Robert Kirkman and Dan Mora begin a new era. It doesn't say a bold new era. It doesn't say everything you know is wrong, but it does acknowledge that things were a certain way, and now they're going to be another way, starting with issue 25.
Yeah, and I mean, sort of cynically, any publisher will always want to make sure that it feels like there's an accessible jumping on point. you do definitely want to make sure that new readers are always feeling welcome. So, yeah. Scotty Cameron reminds us that Kirkman picked up the run on Ultimate X-Men after Mark Millar. That was, quite early Kirkman. And again, willing to do his thing and thwart our expectations with the introduction of the Ultimate Cable.
I thought that Brian K. Vaughan came between the two.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I think there was a gap with writer. Yeah. Given her animated origins, I wonder how this version of Astoria would react if she encountered Power Glide. Probably won't happen, but if it did, I'd be tickled pink. I think, Destro might lose his girlfriend.
I would be tickled a light metallic maroon. Should we talk about the issue? Or do you have more?
I've got a little bit of news.
Yes,
yeah.
good.
So we've had a few sort of cover releases. So G.I. Joe issue number 7, full art variant by Nicholas Draper Ivy. Just 240 unit limited run. Seems very low. And this one was a Skybound web store exclusive. So they've not had too many of these Skybound web store exclusives. So interesting to see this one as I guess they're using the change of arc with the issue number 7 as a bit of a statement to again have a jumping on point.
And a bunch of variant covers. Can I buy this cover just with my Skybound insider points, or do I have to use American dollars?
I don't know that. Possibly you might be able to get some money off with points. I'm not 100% sure about that.
This is really just a way for me to explain that I have not been paying attention to Skybound insider points.
Next up, we have a issue number 1 reprint. We are on the 5th printing now of G.I. Joe issue number 1. And this is a relatively spectacular cover from Esad Ribic, who is a great artist. And if you've ever had the pleasure of seeing him paint live at a convention, he is a bit of a magician when it comes to painted art. This is up there in my top 10 of G.I. Joe Skybound covers already, I think. Great stuff from Ribic.
This is the artist who drew Marvel's Secret Wars and most recently just wrapped up Avengers versus Aliens. Aliens versus Avengers, which just came out in collected edition also this past week. This is also a very fun, exciting, well-executed cover for me.
Next up, Energon Universe Ashcan 2025. This was given away for free to attendees at the Skybound Energon Universe panel. I believe this is the only way that you can actually get this limited edition. It's got a Ludo Lullaby cover, and I do have a little bit of the interiors there. So it's mostly black and white preview pages of Transformers number 25, some pin-up of the Transformers characters, a little bit of a preview of what we might expect from the first issue of Dreadnought Wars, a character turnaround, Ripper in his sort of Viper-inspired costume by Tom Riley, Xandar in what is quite a faithful costume there, really, for his versus his original V1 comic look. He said, faithful to his original look, segmented shoulder pieces, bright colors, something I tried to keep for every Dreadnought. And then Zarana, also there with a bit of a slightly updated look to her from Tom Riley, including goggles there on her forehead.
And spurs. She's got spurs on her boots. Like she's a cowboy. Like she's going to ride a horse.
And Torch there, and then looking forward to Void Rivals and the Quintesson War. So if you were wondering what was in this Energon Universe Ashcan, that is what you would have got.
Can you go back to the inside back cover that just has the EU logo? Can I admit that I am foolish and had not actually noticed that the little negative space between the middle of the E and the left middle of the U forms a sort of a diamond, or like a spark shape with a couple sort of lines emanating from it. Oh, that's the forehead of the two protagonists in Void Rivals.
That's what I think, maybe. Yeah, like the
Okay.
gem on the forehead of the Void Rivals characters, perhaps.
As a Transformers fan, I wonder if that is a slightly different take on Energon, like an Energon crystal or an Energon cube. That's not a perfect cube, but that's a slightly sort of curved cube. But either way, that looks like an exciting MacGuffin, if I've ever seen one. And whether this is a literal physical thing or a symbol of a physical thing, I bet someone's going to be looking for it or them in the next.
They do have the EU logo in the top left-hand corner of the EU titles, but it is very small. So, yeah, we don't normally get to see it in such big print.
Also, it's pretty busy considering how small it is on all the covers, what with the stars and the gradient and the sort of white outline around the black, and then the red purple outline around that. And I do like this logo a lot. I do think when it's that small, you sort of don't see it. And every time I'm at my store and I show someone Void Rivals issue 1, Transformers issue 1, or Transformers issue 2, Duke issue 1, I do my little walkthrough, which is still happening even to this point, where volume 3s of these series have been released, still showing people cover price or issues from the beginnings of these runs. I sort of point to that in the top corner, and people say, "Oh, okay," like they didn't quite pick up on that.
There's another G.I. Joe #1 variant cover. So it's curious to see that we're still getting G.I. Joe #1s being released. This is Tiago da Silva, Baroness. This one was going to be an exclusive for the Terrificon con. And we do have a Baroness here posing. Not much going on relating to the story.
Why are there so many covers of Baroness?
Hey, you revised it. Awesome.
I did.
Awesome. They're more, they go by faster. There are more variants and fewer regular ones. There are more variants that don't have anything to do with anything. This one looks a little Star Wars-y. Like what is that Star Destroyer up above behind her? Is that a G.I. Joe vehicle that we've seen?
That's the Phantom Stealth Fighter, is it? It looks a bit like the shape. Bit random, but I think that's what it is.
That Ghost Rider flies, the G.I. Joe vehicle from '89.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, I can see that. That feels like something there only ever was one of. I feel like Sky Striker, there's 10 or 100 of them. The Stealth, I feel like there was only ever one.
Yeah.
But hey,
there's at least 3.
Well, it's the Energon Universe, and so it's a different continuity, so the rules are different. Baroness is a good guy here. Are you going to get to the part, Mark, where you tell people about the that number thing that Talking Joe achieved?
That we've got over 1,000 subscribers. Yeah, we did that. Didn't we talk about that last time? Yeah, but yeah, we've hit that magic metric. Over 1,000 subscribers. Thank you to everyone that has subscribed. I think we're on 1,018 last I looked. So thank you to everyone for subscribing. If you're watching, listening, and you've not subscribed yet, do hit that good old button. Get us soaring up the ranks. Then this one is not for this issue. I think this is just as a heads up for G.I. Joe issue number 11. This is a Tiago da Silva 616 comics connecting variant. So it's actually 2 different comics. One half of Hound. One side is battle damaged, the other pristine. So that is up on the 616 comic website. We can talk about it in a bit more detail next month when we are talking about issue number 11. Elsewhere in the Energon universe, issue 23 of Transformers was out on August the 13th, focusing in on Ultra Magnus. We've not seen a continuation of any G.I. Joe elements in the story in this particular issue after seeing a bit of Duke. But yeah, any comments on that, Tim?
Good comic. You all should read it.
And Void Rivals also continues. The last one out was July 23rd. Issue number 22 comes out next week. And again, sort of every issue, we sort of generally getting a bit of a touch point on what's happening with Pythona on her ship, and also this other Royal Guard who is sort of over with Skuxoid after he'd been left for dead. So they're sort of building out these Royal Guard characters as sort of more fully formed characters in their own right, with names and everything. So yeah, catch in with Void Rivals for a continuation of that story. And I did hear that from that coverage that we will see Pythona sort of taking part in the Void Rivals, what is it called? Something
Quintesson War.
Yeah. Scotty says, "You mean Doc?" What did I say? Did I not say Doc in Transformers? What did
you said that Pythona would take part in the Quintesson War?
No. Back in, I said that we had. I thought I'd said that in the pages of Transformers we saw a lot of Doc, but maybe I said something else. Otherwise, I wouldn't be
Scotty,
corrected.
I also missed it. Thank you for the fact check. If you got it right.
And I think that is that. So we can actually get into the actual G.I. Joe number 10. But after talking about all of that stuff about the rest of the Energon universe, I think I need to just have a little bit of a palate cleanser to get me properly into the Parisian vibe of talking of G.I. Joe number 10. So here we go.
Talking Joe, G.I. Joe in Paris, Cover Girl and the Baroness. They are in a fighting death pit. Major Blood, the Maya Picket. Zut alors, Baguette, we are your parents, don't let us die. Arc de triomphe, le singe est dans l'arbre. C'est un Transformer. Talking Joe, G.I. Joe in Paris, Cover Girl and the Baroness. Find out what happens as we delve into the latest episode of the Talking Joe.
That was great. Mark, if you ever retire from hosting Talking Joe, I think you should just do a 2-hour weekly podcast where you just create jingles about G.I. Joe and Transformers and just pair them with songs and rhymes and themes. Solbro Ryu says, oui, oui.
Yes,
okay.
Sir.
You got the credits?
This issue was brought to us by the creative team of Joshua Williamson, writer, artist Andrea Milana, colorist Lee Loughridge, letterer Russ Wooton, editor Ben Abernethy, publication design Andres Juarez, and production is from Ashby, Florence.
Before you do the next, before you do the next logo, file this under not very interesting. But folks, right now you are looking at Mark's digital version or preview of this inside front cover, where the G.I. Joe logo is red, and I'm holding up to the screen my physical copy of G.I. Joe, where the inside front cover has all the same credits and the same design, except my G.I. Joe logo is a staticky white. Okay, now the covers.
Let's have a look at the covers in the gallery. Cover
A is drawn and colored by Tom Riley. There's no background. Baroness is attacking CoverGirl. Baroness is standing over CoverGirl. Baroness is holding two daggers back over her head, swinging them both forward. One of her legs is up. CoverGirl is down on the ground, kneeling, holding her shoulder, which is bleeding. Both have gritted teeth. The camera is at about knee height, looking slightly up. We don't see the ground, and there is no background. There's no physical objects. There's no sort of color blobs that give an indication of inside, outside, headquarters, training room, Paris. The background is just a yellow to a slightly more orange yellow gradient. And then the colors on these two characters are sort of in agreement with that warm yellow. Baroness has her, G.I. Joe armor on, and there's just a little bit of sort of blood splatter from, you know what? I take that back. Baroness isn't swinging her daggers down. I think she's pulling her daggers up, having just stabbed, because the way that little bits of blood are flinging off of those two daggers sort of below them. This cover really pops off of a new comics rack, and a tiny part of me, whenever I see a cover with no background, the cynical jerk says, well, that cover artist didn't spend a lot of time. This is such an obnoxious thing, but this isn't true and it's not fair, but it's still a thing that my brain does. Well, that cover artist didn't spend as much time on that cover as they could have. And then the store owner in me, and also the comics reader that likes variety, thinks, well, without a background, this cover can be more bold and direct, and it can compete more with all the covers next to it, because what jumps out more than, busy detailed Batman covered in like blood and rain and grit and armor on a rooftop with gargoyles and like villains and like the Batmobile behind him, than two people and a yellow block of color behind them. That's okay, cover A.
That's cover A. I'm going to do something slightly out of order just because that's the way I've done my slides. This one on screen now is one that I should have mentioned in the previous segment, which is a Marcelo Mater G.I. Joe issue number 1 retailer variant for Top Shelf Comic. This one features rock and roll, harkening back to G.I. Joe issue number 1, with he's holding like a viper by his tunic in the front, and behind him looks to be Mercer sort of leering over him. It's quite a nice, powerful cover, and as I say, interesting that we're still getting issue number 1s being released.
But behind them and around them is smoke or steam. What is this structure behind them? Is it a doorway?
Maybe it's meant to be like a plinth type display for that Cybertronian junk piece of metal that they were protecting from the events of issue number 1. Okay,
okay. Back to issue 10.
Back to our scheduled programming, and cover B.
Cover B is drawn and colored by Andrea Milana. It is CoverGirl and Baroness. They are both waist up. They're back to back. Each is holding a pistol. CoverGirl is looking over her shoulder at us, while Baroness is sort of looking diagonally down to the right. The background is a mostly sort of blue with a little bit of yellow aqua in it, sort of color streak blur. There's a little bit of sort of gray streaking on the bottom two corners, which I think isn't really, I think it's as much physical, like smoke or dirt, as it is like color stuff, because this is just an exciting sort of poster moment. There's some white spatter in the background that looks a little bit like Starfield, but also just looks like anything in the background to give the background a little bit of motion and speed. And these two characters are at an angle, so they are diagonal from the bottom left to the top right cover. And it's interesting that in this case, both cover A and cover B are both sort of they're like very similar. If you just to describe them, they've each got like kind of one color in the background, no background. These two same characters fighting each other or sort of fighting together, but in a fight. And there's a strong sense of diagonal. And it's another reminder for me that Tom Riley and Andrea Milana, to my eye, they don't draw similarly, but once you start having them draw the same characters and similar scenes, I realize how much actually their art does have in common. And there was that Energon Universe special from Free Comic Book Day where we thought the art was one of them and it was the other. And, you know, on hindsight, that makes perfect sense. And then on hindsight, well, they kind of do draw similarly in a nice way.
And interesting, you say that this is a sort of movie poster style composition because bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you? It's an homage to a Bad Boys poster from featuring Will Smith. So there we go.
And Martin Lawrence. Do you know, that's not the first Bad Boys. They've got handcuffs here. Is that the third one or the fourth one?
It's I think one of the more recent ones.
They're thrown in jail or something? Okay. Ride or die? For life? Okay.
I didn't realize you were such a big fan of the franchise, too.
I'm a small fan. I'm a small inadvertent fan of the franchise. I have seen 3.5 of the Bad Boys movies. Okay. Cover C is the 1 in 10 variant. It's drawn by Alan Qua. Again, this connects with the similar 1 in 10 variants from issues 7, 8, 9 so far. Again, we're looking down at a desk, and on it is a photograph and some paperwork and file map desk stuff. There's a compass, the thing you draw circles with. There's some bullets. The photo in this case shows CoverGirl. She's in kind of a 90s like tough person comic book cover pose, you know, like holding gun. It's like how like you'd expect Death's Head or Cable to be standing on a cover. Like
that is a big piece of machinery she's got there in her hand.
Yes, big machine gun weapon in one hand that's sort of propped up, slightly leaning on her shoulder, you know, like shoulders out and strong, one leg straight, the other bent, other arm out. On the bottom right of this cover, we can see a bit of a coffee mug with some coffee. There's that map I mentioned. It's pretty nondescript. And then way on the very top, sort of eighth of the cover is a bit of a pistol. And I think this is a fun cover if you have the other ones, but doesn't, you know, connecting covers are always a mixed bag, as we've talked about before. This is a nice drawing and a fun cover, but I do think this has to sort of obey 2 sets of rules, which is what would it be if it was its own cover, and what does it have to do to connect with other covers?
Do you know how they say that there somewhere out there's a bullet with your name on it? Well, on this cover, we've got Alan Qua's, because there's a bullet with his name on it, or at least a stylized signature.
Well, I hope that bullet doesn't find him before he finishes drawing his next covers. Cover D is the 1 in 25 reissue variant. This is drawn by Lucas Meyer and Andrea Lucas. Is this the first time, Mark, we've had one of these explosion background covers that reminds us of all the 1980s G.I. Joe toy package paintings by Hector Grito and then Doug Hart? Is this the first time we've had one of these covers with 2 characters on it?
You might be right. Yeah, I can't think of another example off the top of my head. So could well be that this is the first with 2 characters.
You know, when we saw Tomax on one of these covers and Zaymont, they got their own covers, and that, you know, that's when you think you would do it for sure. So standing here shooting to the left is the Baroness with a machine gun and her G.I. Joe armor, and kneeling to the right is CoverGirl with more of the sort of shotgun style laser rifle thing. And each of these characters have already had one of these 1 in 10 covers. So I say this in a fun way, not in a critical way. I think we're starting to see sort of the limits of this fun gimmick where every character gets an issue cover, gets one of these variant covers, and we try and line it up with the issue which sort of spotlights them. But these characters have now shown up in many issues, and they've already gotten these covers, if not on G.I. Joe, then on one of the miniseries. So we're starting to double up without it being a costume change. Because we had seen, am I getting this mixed up with the second printing covers? We had seen sort of a second cover with
You're right.
Blood or Destro, but a slightly different costume, maybe?
I think a bit of, possibly both. Yeah, possibly on the second printing and also on these. I probably am getting them mixed up too.
Cover E is the 1 in 50 ratio variant. Your comic book store had to order 50 copies in any combination of covers A and or B in order to qualify to order one of these. And this is drawn by Homare. It's the Baroness, and it sort of looks like that Capcom Street Fighter, versus Marvel art, sort of that style of sort of anime face, and the rendering.
Shirao.
Okay.
Appleseed artist.
And in the rendering on the costume, so the Baroness is in her G.I. Joe armor. She's holding her rifle with her right hand. She's sort of pulling her hair back from her ear and neck, her long blowing hair in her left hand. There is no background. There's just sort of a bright pale yellow, pale slightly green in their yellow cover background, but there is sort of a secondary image where the artist has taken the character, blown up the silhouette of her to like 130% and put it offset behind her. Soul Brother Ryu says that's Bengus style. That's the name of the artist. And years ago, a friend of mine said that's who Joe Madureira was looking at when he was getting into Uncanny X-Men. And I hope that's right, because I try not to say things that are wrong on Talking Joe. This cover, this sort of treatment, not the actual drawing, but the treatment of character with the sort of blow up repeat image of them behind them. Marvel's about to do something similar with a series of J. Scott Campbell variant covers, which he's doing for like every Marvel book, which will be him drawing a single character, no background, just the color, but then they're sort of blown up and repeated one time behind them. And then they've got some cheeky name for it where they're taking his initials, JSC. It's like just something collectible, just so awesome. I forget what it is. It's a way of calling them variant covers with his name without using his name. And then was that it? Here we go. Yeah.
We have a retailer variant, 616 Comics, Jamie Tyndall exclusive Virgin and foil variants. I believe they're calling the Virgin variant the full figure, and the foil version is the shins upward version. This year, we've sort of moved past Baroness covers, past Chameleon, that's old hat. Now it's Cover Girl covers will be the way forward. I don't have a Cover Girl jingle yet. Let's see going forward if she merits one.
Does Cover Girl? Cover Girl's a kind of makeup, right? I'm thinking of maybe she's born with it. Maybe it's Maybelline. But is there a jingle we can use from commercials? Okay.
I was thinking maybe Cover Girls on covers. Cover Girls on covers.
Duran Duran, very good.
Yeah, thank
you. Jamie Tyndall's art is very much that 90s babe, Witchblade. I know he was not a Witchblade artist, but like skinny waist, skinny neck, big eyes, long arms, long torso, long legs, style. And if that's your thing, this is like the best cover ever. What I see here is sort of the superheroing of CoverGirl's costume, because ostensibly she's wearing a shirt and pants, but the way that they're drawn and colored here, they're so tight and sort of striated. They feel more like superhero costumes, more like, skin tight, not spandex, but like sort of the like post Brian Hitch, like more athletic, like motocross. Anyway. So there's that. Does one more thought about variant covers that are retailer exclusives? Does 616 Comics now hold the record for most Energon Universe GI Joe variant covers? Because I feel like they're the ones that keep coming back every issue.
Mm-hmm. They're doing certainly a heck of a lot. I would imagine that they have done the most. Top Shelf also doing an awful lot of variant covers as well. So neck and neck, I imagine, between the two of those. So with that said, let's get into G.I. Joe issue number 10 proper with a plot breakdown.
Plot breakdown.
Baroness and Covergirl are trapped in a pit by Major Blood and ordered to fight to the death, or he will kill the Baroness's parents, or even worse, read them poetry. Baroness pretends to kill Covergirl, luring Major Blood into the pit. In Springfield, Destro voices his concerns to Chameleon that Cobra Commander is hiding something, leading him to snoop around in Cobra Commander's secret lab, finding mutilated Cobra troopers in giant floaty tubes. Asked to explain himself, Cobra Commander promises to show Destro firsthand. Elsewhere, in the pit, Clutch suggests to Hound where he might be able to find some Energon to top up his low batteries. The two of them go to the site of the Mars Industries site in Washington, D.C., where the Joes last fought Cobra. He's tracked by an untrusting Risk, only to be surprised by Mercer and his squad of Vipers. Little does he know that there is a giant robot standing right behind him. Dun dun dun. Perfect.
Good issue. Where do you want to start, Mark?
Let's start with last issue, perhaps. I thought I had this one ready, but the cliffhanger of issue number 9 had Baroness looking to be stabbed in the back by Covergirl, but as we sort of start this particular issue, sort of Baroness is on the ground. We don't see that sort of blood splatter or anything like that. It feels like there's a slight, I don't know, just disconnect between the cliffhanger of the last issue and actually how we pick up issue number 10 with page 1. They don't seem to quite flow from one to the other. What do you think?
You're saying that it's almost like we jumped back 20 seconds and Baroness is not in mortal danger. She's not suffering from a mortal wound.
So this now on the screen is the last page of issue number 9, and it looks like, Covergirl is properly thrusting a dagger into Baroness's back. She's sort of arching her back forward. There's a very clear red blood splatter, but when we sort of pick up the story with issue number 10, it doesn't seem to be kind of referenced back as to kind of how they spoofed that injury, almost that we don't see the blood, we don't see the injury for Baroness. It just feels like there's a teeny tiny disconnect between how we left it and how we pick up.
I would say not quite teeny tiny. I would say small, medium small. And I'm going to jump. I say that in all seriousness.
Yeah.
I'm going to jump ahead to page 12, which is to me related, even though that's now getting halfway into the issue. It's after the 2-page spread that you're supposed to read sort of across the 2 pages. It's not a giant splash, but it's the fight where Blood is reading his poetry. So you get to page 12, and Baroness on the top of page 12 does something to CoverGirl, and there's a giant sound effect behind them that says crack. And this is the previous page is this build up in tension and rhythm of this fight that CoverGirl punches Baroness in the hits her with her forehead, she headbutts her, and then Baroness knees CoverGirl in the stomach, and then CoverGirl slams Baroness on the ground, and then CoverGirl grabs the knife, and then Baroness something, but it's awesome. And then the Baroness has got her. This is on the second to last panel of page 11. Baroness has her arm around CoverGirl's neck, which sort of looks like she's going to strangle her, or is that a wrestling move? Does that have a special name? Is there a G.I. Joe character?
I was just going to flash up. I was going to flash up an image and say, "This is the panel we're talking about." And oh no, how did that get there? So Sergeant Slaughter there, sort of throttling me in the Cobra clutch. It's not quite a Cobra clutch, but it's definitely sort of a head choking. She's got her armor around her neck, and then I think the crack is meant to be that she's sort of doing an old filmic neck snap. Yeah. Okay.
So the sound effect and the sort of context says, "Oh God, the Baroness just snapped CoverGirl's neck and killed her," and then I immediately start thinking to myself, "No, they just killed Roadblock, Rock and Roll in issue 1, right? 1, and they're not going to kill off another Joe this soon, and." Okay, well, maybe they did, but she'll come back later in the issue, or she'll come back in 2 issues. My gears immediately start turning. How are they going to undo this? How is this not what I'm seeing? But then I stop because I don't actually know what I'm seeing. If Baroness is twisting CoverGirl's neck, I kind of feel like we needed to see the moment before this, not where she, having just twisted her neck, drops her. So then I start thinking, wait, is the crack the sound of like her neck or back snapping, or is that the sound of her landing on the ground, or is she is it a pile drive when you drop someone on your knee? That's what Bane does on like the Kelly Jones cover of like the Nightfall issue and then the Nightfall collection?
Back-breaking move. I think pile driver is normally they're sort of turned upside down and dropped on their head, but
everything I know about wrestling comes from owning a Sergeant Slaughter figure and never watching wrestling. So I got to this page and I thought, oh no, I love this artist, I love this writer, I love this series, I love this setup, I love this scene. I don't know what just happened. And then the rest of the issue, it's like, did she kill her or not? Did she fake kill her or not? Shane Simic says maybe CoverGirl was in need of a chiropractic adjustment. That's a big realignment of a vertebrae. So
I wondered whether a no prize on this one is, if she's not hurting her, where's the sound coming from? Maybe she's just stamping her foot down to kind of on a rocky surface to kind of approximate a loud cracking noise
to fake it,
to sell it. Yeah.
Okay. To trick Major Blood. So I'm not saying this to be a jerk. If this was a Devil's Due comic, I'd be saying it to be a jerk. No, I'm saying this plainly. I don't actually know what the fake out is that Baroness did for CoverGirl. And I can't quite tell how much of it was improv or how much of it was agreed upon sort of before the issue or off panel last issue. So Mark, I will ask you, what happens here and when did they decide?
I don't know. I think they're sort of they're doing a jazz riff on it. They're sort of making it up as they go along. I think they're kind of in simpatico of knowing that they're not going to genuinely kill each other, but they want to kind of sell it to Blood to make him think that something has happened, and get lulled into a false sense of security or whatever to get him down into that pit. At which point,
is that your guess that panel 1 on page 12, Baroness is stamping her foot, or is she?
Yeah, I think that
Is she-
she's doing
is she-
something to sell it that she's hurting CoverGirl, but it's not actually hurting her, because after all, when Blood jumps down, sort of stands over her, he gets the surprise. CoverGirl is able to wrap her legs around him, snap his leg, and there's a little smile on her face. Surprise. So, I think there's some genuine kind of conflict that's happened between the two of them, because she's got a sort of bloody nose or whatever. But the smile sort of indicates that, yes, we got away with it. We've sold it and got him down and done what we need to do.
Okay, so then on page 15, this is sort of me wrapping up, like wishing I could figure this out. Panel 2 on page 15, CoverGirl, CoverGirl is supporting Baroness, but they're both sort of leaning forward. CoverGirl says, "You're not the only one with a flair for dramatics." Baroness says, I've had to pretend to do much worse than that to lure a man into a pit, Blood. We knew the only way. Seriously though, we knew the only way we knew the only way you'd ever come down here is if one of us were dead. See? And I thought, okay, is this where like someone pulls out like the knife and they broke the knife in half and I didn't see that? It's like, see, crack, crack, we made the fake sound. Or like, see, I like smuggled a little like metal tray under my blouse and I'm like sort of bending it with my arm. And when Diana Davis says, Baroness always carries a bunch of fresh celery to break for these occasions. She's
just good at selling. That sort of diss trick, like, I'm gonna snap my nose, and I don't know if that sound came across, but that's a great line of dialogue that we've got there. I've had to pretend to do much worse than that to lure a man into a pit of blood. This isn't my first pit.
So I'm a little sad about this issue because these two things in combination, Mark's comment about the dire stakes from the last page of the last issue not being carried forward sort of to agree with continuity, like something got sort of dropped out and reset, and then my story confusion here, like in broad strokes, I understand they faked it, I get it, but because the specific isn't clear to me, and it's not even like one of them is holding a prop, like not some celery, but like some little thing. It's not like they're holding a thing and I can't tell what it is. Like, oh, I think they're making a noise, but I don't know what that is. I don't know what they did. So that makes me a little sad. Let's talk about other cool things in the issue.
Yeah, they sort of talk while we're with Baroness and CoverGirl. I did get thinking about the speculation that are these people that Baroness was snooping on her actual parents? Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. And then I remembered looking back to Duke when we were first introduced to Baroness, that they had that little flashback
You're saying
page sequence.
You're saying the Duke miniseries.
The Duke miniseries, yeah. It had a little double page splash, sort of introducing us to Baroness with some, manila folders and her sort of, being a sniper and all that kind of thing. And over in the corner of that page, it did have a young Baroness flanked by presumably her parents, a man with a moustache, sort of a serious-looking aristocratic man with a pointy moustache and suit, and the mother who. The expression there on her face looked a bit tired, weary, perhaps not in a happy marriage. And, I'm projecting, but she's
got a fancy blouse and fancy earrings.
Mm-hmm. And so then we've got in modern day, we've got the characters that Baroness describes as her parents, a man with a moustache. He's now bald, a woman with long hairs. They look a lot more casual, relaxed, happy, than in that sort of more formal posed photo in that previous sequence. So I don't know that it necessarily tells us that they're the same people or not the same people. I think it's still a little bit up in the air with this additional, piece of let's call evidence. What are your thoughts, Tim?
And what Mark isn't saying, but if all you listeners and viewers just read this issue, you'll remember once or twice in the issue, Blood says, "No, I really will have Raptor kill your parents, or I'll go do it. So you have to submit." And Baroness says, "No, don't." So Mark is still reacting to whether that is an act or not, because if it's an act, the Baroness is still doing it, and if it's not, then we're sort of the second issue in a row seeing this vulnerable and sympathetic version of the Baroness, which is new for the Energon universe.
Yeah. The next thing I wanted to talk about was just Milana's art in this particular issue. And I sort of, with each issue, I feel like it's looking more and more kind of manga inspired. We sort of see quite a lot of, just in terms of the artistic approach and the expressions, but in some of the action sequences, you're sort of getting a lot of manga kind of techniques of like the speed lines and things like that in various sequences. And there was one specific thing that I wanted to call out, which was I put on screen an image of Major Blood sort of looking up at him from the sort of a Baroness's eye view, looking up from the bottom of the pit. And on the right, I've got an image of Colonel Shima from the Akira movie, obviously based on the Otomo originated manga comic. I'm not saying it's a swipe. It's clearly been drawn very differently. The line work there is not at all the same, but from a sensibility feel, it feels like there's a lot of similarity in approach.
This is one of those separated at birth photo matchups you would do in a magazine or on a website or a blog, where it's like two photos of two different celebrities who don't maybe actually look alike, but just sort of this one. It's like the way that the makeup and their hair and the lighting, it's like, oh, like Ben Stiller and Brad Pitt do look exactly alike. In this case, it's these two guys with mustaches who are making similar faces at similar angles, and as you say, in similar lighting. And then you have more to say about the fight or Milana's drawings?
No, it was just I was just giving a sort of a bit of a visual reference there to some of these this approach of just speed lines of sort of stripping back the background and just having a speed line to kind of suggest the kineticism of a sequence, but also mean that you've got something going on there which is a lot more interesting than just a pure blank colored background, for example. So what should we talk about?
The pit.
Next?
When we see the pit again,
we're still in. Let's finish the Baroness Blood stuff, because we haven't talked about his poetry yet. So where was? Let me try and find the.
While
page.
You do, I'll just point out
to
listeners. Mark and I just reviewed IDW's G.I. Joe Origins issue 19. This is out of order. We have not started the G.I. Joe Origins series, but we did it because two characters in it are going to show up in an upcoming issue of Real American Hero. And we noted that on the inside front cover of that issue from, I forget, 2015, there was a poem, and it was a haiku that Larry Hama wrote about Snake Eyes or Storm Shadow or ninja stuff. And you can listen to that episode, folks, where you get all of your podcasts. And the reason actually why I'm mentioning this is because I think more of you listen to our episodes about new issues of Energon Universe G.I. Joe and Real American Hero G.I. Joe. And sometimes when we do like a flashback story or an interview, not all of you do. And I just want to encourage all of you to listen to all of our episodes. But anyway, the last time we got poetry,
and specifically this issue, we're talking about it because it's relevant to today, because it is the prequel essentially to A Real American Hero issue 321, which will be out very soon. So it will be a return of the antagonist that gets introduced in this particular issue.
Okay, but hyping our other episodes to a few of you lapsed listeners aside, I get this issue 10 of G.I. Joe today, and Major Blood has this poem. And I thought of two things at the same time. One, there is a poem in his original file card, right?
Yeah, there are actually, this is something that I've discovered today. There are actually two poems.
Okay.
So,
and then wait, let me just finish up this other thought. And then the other thing is that Mark and I did this episode about G.I. Joe Origins 19, which is like a 10-year-old comic book, and it has a poem written by Larry Hama, not a character. But G.I. Joe is not a place where you have a lot of poetry. But the last two times I, as a G.I. Joe fan, have stumbled upon poetry recently, they've both been by Larry Hama. One was very good and one was very bad, right? And the Major Blood poems are supposed to be very bad. So handing it back to you, Mark, what would you like to say about original Major Blood poems and 2025 Major Blood poems?
So a bit of context in the Joshua Williamson interview, he talked about the process of writing this particular poem, and he said that his inspiration for a character is often to go back to the file cards, which is kind of the core DNA of any particular character, and it does call out the poem there, and so I did go look back to the file cards here, courtesy of 3D Joe's. So it says, Major Blood writes poetry badly. A mercenary's job is a heartless one. I'm a soldier for hire like a pawn-shot gun. My ruthless tactics keep you on your toes because I fight them all, whether friends or foes. And this was the V1 Major Blood file card. There was then a variation on the file card with a different poem. Collect them all. When you're feeling low and woozy, slap a fresh clip in your Uzi. Assume the proper firing stance and make the suckers jump and dance. Cobra. So there we go. That's the original Major Blood poem. So how does the new one hold up to that? Williamson said that he struggled with the poem because he has to sort of be bad poetry as well. So it's got to strike that balance of being an interesting poem, but also written by someone who is a bad poet. So apparently in his original script, he kind of left almost a blank, insert poem here, and thought on it for a long time, and then sort of cracked down and wrote it and filled it in the, I think, for the lettering pass. And the poem goes as follows. A sound I usually adore until... let me start again. Bang! A sound I usually adore until I could no more. The metal pierced the back of my eye. Thankfully, my brain didn't go bye-bye. Fired by the woman in black hue, who now hides in red, white, and blue. She took half my vision and half my precision. Once she knows blood's pain, she will... Enough! So I thought we could come up with some suggestions as to how we might finish that poem. She took half my vision and half my precision. Once she knows blood's pain, she will... Die on television? Surrender like a true Parisian.
I thought it was going to wrap up just in one more line. Once she knows blood's pain, she will never breathe again.
Oh, that's terrible.
Thank you.
Anything in the comments there of how to finish off that poem? We'll stick them on. But yeah, a cool page as well. It's sort of juxtaposing the fight between Covergirl and Baroness, with Baroness with Major Blood torturing them all the more with his poem from his pink poetry book.
I really like that there is a prop, that he's not just reciting it from memory, that he pulls out this little book, and it's on the previous page, right? You know, when you tragically stole my eye, I thought my life was over. I was ruined. But then in the darkness of all my grieving, I uncovered something about myself. I'm more than a hired gun. I'm a Renaissance man, a poet, if you will. And since I have an audience, right, he's really enjoying this, but he's taking it seriously, right? Like, this is both a delicious villain bragging, but also he thinks he's a good poet. And I feel like there's so much in modern humor of the last 30 years is sort of knowing and side-eyed. You know, it's Letterman, it's Mad Magazine, it's Saturday Night Live, it's like parody videos where we know that something is bad and we're enjoying that it's bad, or we are making fun of something and everyone is in on it. And this is not that. This is not like, hey, Mark, I'm going to write a terrible jingle for Talking Joe. We're going to take like a really great song and write some really terrible lyrics, and we'll both laugh at it. Blood thinks he's good, and Blood thinks he's doing creative work, and this has healed him. And so when it turns out to be so terrible, and when Baroness and Covergirl take him out, it's that much sort of funnier that he has this very sort of old-fashioned villain. It's not quite a weakness, but sort of because he's missing an eye, blind spot, where he doesn't know he's a terrible poet. But then he pulls out this little, I carry a sketchbook around with me. I don't write poems. I mostly draw on it. I take notes, but I love that it's this prop, and I think it might be a Moleskine sketchbook, which is like a brand name. It's a kind of paper. It's a kind of sketchbook. It's got an elastic band. They come in certain sizes. I don't know if they come in pink, but I will forgive Lee Loughridge for a great fun choice here. But the fact that it's a prop means that, I don't know if that's in the script or Milana sort of added that on his own, but for just a couple panels, it gives something else for Blood to sort of work with and react to. The same way that if he talked about how much he loved his gun or his knife, he could sort of hold his gun or his knife in front of him and look at it and turn it in the lights and like adjust it or clean it or, take the clip out. He's got this little book, and it's like, what's the next step? He like pulls out a pen. Oh, I've got an idea. Let me write down the next one. Right. It's such a small thing, but I love that there is a prop here, that there's a book and he's actually reading his poem to them.
Mm-hmm. And a particular level of psychopathy as well to be, writing bad poetry and then inflicting it on your captive audience as well.
Is the last time we've seen any Major Blood read poetry? It's a Mike Vosberg issue, right? Like, yeah,
I think 20, it's like really like early days of
16 or 19 or 23. I know I'm rattling off numbers that Vosberg didn't draw because there were some fill-ins, but Blood hasn't shown up when Destro takes out Blood, because Blood's disguised himself as Destro in, what is that, issue 56? I forget. The cover is Zach, it's Flint, Destro, and Lady J side by side with Destro. Isn't that the issue?
Yeah.
Where it turns out that
first issue, I think,
that Blood is an imposter. He's pretending to be, and then when Blood shows up in what was the do we see? We don't see Blood in that that issue that one-off that Hama did in like the 270s. that's Wild Weasel and Baroness, right?
Yeah, I don't think he. Yeah,
Okay.
He
So
appears for a couple of memorable issues in the Harmer IDW ARA run where he's in the jungle, sort of working with like a local warlord, and there's sort of the Joes are almost acting like a kind of charitable kind of NGO, helping the villagers, and they sort of do a war crime on them, and then sort of Chuckles takes his kind of revenge. Yes, great 2 issues, but I think that's about pretty much the only time that he appears.
One of those covers, Blood is pointing a gun at Lady J, and she's tied up in front of him.
Yeah.
But I don't think we have seen Major Blood recite any poetry in a long time. And you don't just because Blood shows up doesn't mean you have to have him recite poetry. Just because Zartan shows up doesn't mean you have to have him take on a disguise, or someone reveals themselves and it's actually been Zartan for the last 10 pages, right? These aren't necessarily like action figure gimmicks, like, oh, the launching weapon has to launch during the ad for the toy. But it is a fun layer to this character, and it made me realize how long it's been since we have seen it, considering how much of his file card it is. All right, what else is happening in this issue that we should?
Right, so you wanted to jump to the pit with Clutch and Hound, and wanting to track down some Energon.
Oh, actually, I was just going to say that in that establishing page, that panel of the pit exterior, it's still got construction cranes. Since we seem to be, is this going to get a jingle? Since we seem to, every issue, we have an establishing shot of the pit, and we are reminded that they're still building it or renovating it. I really like the following page, the first 3 panels, which is that kind of spatial division where an artist draws sort of a whole space and then divides it into several panels. So you sort of left to right move across a space as a character moves through the space, but the quote camera doesn't change its view. So in the first panel, Hound is sort of starting to transform from a standing position, and then the sound effect kicks in, and then the second panel, very good. The second panel, he's halfway, and then the third panel, he's finished transforming and it's landed. But it's a reminder that sort of the transformation act is physical and takes up a volume of space, like you might sort of be standing here, and when you finish transforming, you're like 2 feet over there. But you were talking about Andrea Milana's artwork and its influences, and these 3 panels here, I just love the movement for a Transformers comic, sort of pedestrian act, which is a Transformer transforming. But that pose in that first panel where Hound is, I think we established in a previous issue that he has to hunch over because the ceiling isn't tall enough for him to stand. So he's already sort of leaning or down on a knee, but he's planting one arm and he's starting to sort of push his weight down towards the ground. And then in the second panel, he's halfway transformed, and it's subtle. But in the third panel, the right side of him has sort of landed and sort of compressed down a little further, like a that thing I just said,
like a bounce. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. And then the sort of diagonal in the background where the wall becomes the ceiling, Milana draws that as a diagonal and not a straight line anyway. So the whole, like the floor on the bottom of those 3 panels is very subtly triangular. So there's all this subtle dynamism in Milana's art when he has something as simple as Robot Man changes into Jeep, which we see all the time in Transformers comics. And this isn't during a fight. This isn't during an escape. This isn't like during an origin flashback. This is just like, let's go for a drive.
And this isn't a new point, but the Transformers and their robots in disguise sort of element is somewhat undermined by having a giant Autobot logo. I mean, G.I. Joe Transformers branding is very key. Get a big stamp, put it on your vehicle, but it does undermine a little bit the fact that it is a robot in disguise.
Okay, so as a kid, I sort of explained this away from myself with the toys and the cartoon that and does the first live action movie do this for a moment, or did I wish it did? I just sort of pretend that you can see that for a moment and then it disappears, or it appears for a moment when one Autobot drives by another, and I'm sort of using the rub sign sort of physicality here. Like everyone remembers during the first year Transformers, Hasbro added heat sensitive stickers, and you'd rub it and either an Autobot or a Decepticon sticker would appear. And these took the place of the sort of main like actual red or purple Autobot or Decepticon factory applied sticker. But it was also in the marketing of the toys a way to encourage parents to buy actual Hasbro Transformers and not GoBots or any of the knockoffs, because the language was something like only Transformers actually have the Transformers symbol, put your thumb on the sign and reveal their allegiance, whatever it was. So I pretend that sort of we can see it while reading the comic, but characters actually standing there like Clutch can't.
Mm-hmm. I've just drawn a couple of eyes on Clutch. Just sort of, it's curious as you sort of zoom into the art. You sort of get an appreciation of I guess some of the simplicity that Milana's applying, or some of the like gesturalness. Is that how you might describe it? That he's not trying to go in there, and I think most of this is sort of drawn digitally. He's not sort of doing an ultra zoom and trying to fine tune absolutely every detail to its nth degree, like perhaps a Dan Mora might. But here it's much more blocks of shape and the impression of what's being created a lot of the time.
All right, so we maybe, since it ends on the final page, we can come back to this subplot. So the other main subplot in the issue then is Destro. So Destro's having dinner with Astoria, with Chameleon. Thank you. I was a little confused for a moment. What hair color is Chameleon's in this scene? What hair color is Chameleon's in the previous issues? Wasn't it blonde with sort of a dark streak? But
I think
Chameleon, okay, go for it. Go, you explain it.
I was going to say, I think Astoria in just out of costume has got brown hair, but Chameleon, the character, has got blonde hair, and that's partly, I guess, a bit of a disguise that you can differentiate the two. I would have to go back and double check against Destro to be absolutely sure, but I think that's the case.
No, I think you're right. That's a good clarification. Maybe you can start coming up with Soul Brother Ryo says. Wait, go back to the previous one. Soul Brother Ryo says, I think Astoria wears a wig when she is in her Cobra guise. Yes. Thank you. Mark, maybe you can make a jingle for all the times we've seen Destro dining at a long fancy table in a castle in front of a fireplace. No, I'm kidding, but I do think we've seen this 3 or 4 times in G.I. Joe storytelling. I don't think we saw it in what are you putting up to the screen?
This is Destro number 5.
Destro kissing Astoria in issue 5 of Destro, and she has brown hair. So
and after all, she is like the CEO of an important arms company, isn't she? So I think disguise might be useful. But Destro, on the other hand, is not sort of differentiating quite so much his Destro personality and his James McCullen personality, because here he's in a sort of intimate meal, which moves to the bedroom, and he's still there wearing his mask. I don't think have we Have we seen Destro without his mask yet in the Energon universe? Did he appear in Destro without his mask at all?
I don't think so.
Yeah,
He's
I
a
don't
true
think so.
believer. He went up into the mountains to speak to his ancestors because he's a little crazy, and he was certainly wearing his mask there, and they were all wearing masks. I mean, the giant carved statues of them were all wearing masks. So they have this nice dinner, and he wants to know what Cobra Commander is keeping from him. And there's a thing that I always point out in other comics we read on the podcast, when a color artist is doing a really nice job of changing a dominant color scheme from one scene to the next. And I want to point it out here on this page where Destro and Astoria are having dinner, and then in the bedroom, everything is sort of purple with yellow. And then on the next page, Destro's in a hallway, and everything is blue. And then he goes through a doorway, and everything is yellow-green. And then the scene changes, and on the next page, we're back to Paris, and we see Baroness's parents on the streets of Paris. Baroness's parents on the streets of Paris. Say that 10 times fast. And in the foreground is Raptor watching them. And, again, the colors change. It's sort of an orange tan or a peach for the street, and then sort of a dull purple for Raptor. So nice color work and differentiating of locations. But I think my favorite sort of moment in this issue was when Destro yells at Cobra Commander, having seen these three Bacta tanks with injured Star Wars characters. I mean, these five at least, cylinders of bubbling liquid, and in them are injured Cobra soldiers, but they're being turned into cyborgs or regenerated somehow. It's unclear, but cool unclear. Not like what did Baroness and CoverGirl do to each other? Unclear. And Cobra Commander walks in and says, "What are you doing here? My lab is off limits, even to you, Destro." And Destro turns around and yells, "What are you doing? Explain yourself!" Right? And the font is bigger, and the U is in dark red, and all of those 8 words, 6 words are italicized. And Destro is one of those characters where he often doesn't yell. He is often in control. And so when he does yell, it's that much more unnerving or exciting. Whereas I feel like Cobra Commander, all these versions of Cobra Commander, whether he's yelling "retreat" or "how dare you, Serpentor," right? Cobra Commander is much more bombastic, and so when Destro yells, it really it's startling.
And yeah, I mean, it's quite a startling and horrific body horror sort of page there. These troopers in the tanks, and you sort of begin wondering what is happening to them, and what where have they come from, and I guess most of the sense my mind jumps to them perhaps being injured or dead troopers, sort of taken off of the battlefield. Perhaps these are maybe injured troopers from that last encounter with G.I. Joe or something else, or it could even be just some poor Cobra volunteers that Cobra Commander has taken upon himself to do a few experiments on. And it's quite shocking and jarring, but not absolutely clear as to exactly what Cobra Commander is doing to these guys. You kind of got missing limbs, you've got tubes sort of coming in and out, you've got sort of valves attached, hints of perhaps some cybernetics going on there, but possibly not. It's more the one on the right looks like he's got kind of is a growth with a kind of an extended arm, perhaps, as well as missing an arm with stitches on it. So it's all pretty horrific looking. And on the previous page as well, you also get some snakes in a jar, and I wonder if that was like meant to be perhaps similar to that sort of snake that we saw all the way back in, I think it was Cobra Commander issue 1, when he had been injured and Cobra La were sort of doing that experimental kind of surgery or treatment on him, and they had kind of a multi-headed sort of snake as part of that process. But my initial reading of that scene where Cobra Commander, when asked to explain himself, says, perhaps it is best I show you firsthand. I kind of initially read that as being, the superficial, on the surface kind of reading. Okay, Cobra Commander is going to explain to Destro what's going on, but then also he's sort of saying, perhaps I can show you firsthand, and it's exposing his robotic hand, which after all has got a Iron Man style arc reactor blaster in the middle of it. So is he genuinely going to explain something to Destro here, or is he threatening to or preparing to blast him with that wrist, that handheld hand blaster?
I had the same reaction. I thought, oh, is Cobra Commander about to zap Destro? And then I thought, no, that their relationship hasn't soured so much, and it's too early for that to happen. But this is a threat. It's sort of like in a suspenseful scene, the kids are sneaking into like the jail, and the guard who's going to let them in says, oh, I'll open up the gate with the serial killer for you. And they like reaches into their pocket. Like, oh, is he going to grab his gun or the flashlight? Oh, he's grabbing the keys because he's going to open up the gate. But the guard's crazy and he might not actually help the kids. I don't know what story I'm describing, by the way, but we've experienced these sort of partial fake outs and partial sort of threats where the antagonist character gets to have it both ways, and then the writer gets to have the listener or the viewer, the audience, sort of feel both things, right? Oh, good, Cobra Commander will explain it. Oh no, he's going to explain it. So this is a fun escalation, and every one of these issues of Energon Universe G.I. Joe has had one or two or three things happen where I have thought, they sure are moving this along. And each issue feels like they're revealing or changing something that they can't go back from. Mm-hmm. And so in a fun way, no issue feels like it's wasting time or treading water. Each issue feels like even, some of the issues have been a little more satisfying in terms of character work or action, or surprises, but there are these particular kinds of surprises and status quo changes where Destro can't unknow this, right? Just like in its same issue, Risk learns something that changes his whole perception of what this G.I. Joe comic and team and mission are, and now we know that he knows that, and the next issue he will be forever changed. And it's not just like, oh, Raptor shows up. Cool. Now a new version of Raptor is in this continuity. It's not that. And it's not like a small story thing like, 2 issues ago, 3 issues ago, Beachhead has been recruited by Flint and Lady J. Like, oh, okay, well now there's another team. It's always sort of bigger than that, even if it's small moments. And it's about what people know. And since so much of the Energon universe is about the scale and the stakes of this secret, these unknown things, that there are aliens on Earth and more than one kind, right? And we haven't, we've experienced a G.I. Joe like this before, where it interacts with Cobra Law or Transformers or even goes to space. But because we've now had 2 years of the Energon universe and or 2 years plus, and it keeps. What I'm saying is I'm really excited and satisfied by the continual build. And I keep, every time one of these things happens, like, oh, Risk just saw something crazy when he follows Clutch. Or, last issue, I forget exactly what it was, but there was a small escalation in terms of Destro and Cobra Commander. And I think 3 issues ago, there was another one. And, back in the Destro miniseries, there was one. And maybe in the final, I forget, issue of Cobra Commander, there was. And every time I read one of these, I'm excited and also a little worried, like, oh no, are these writers going to overplay their hand? Are there only so many of these exciting status quo changes and reveals that they can do before they've run out? And I think Skybound, the Skybound mark of quality, to me, suggests that the answer is no, they're not going to run out. There will keep being fun changes and surprises. And, at some point we might be reading issue 50 of G.I. Joe, and we'll look back at issue 10 of G.I. Joe and think, oh, right, there were a whole 10 issues of G.I. Joe where Destro didn't really know about the alien robots, or Destro didn't know about these crazy experiments that Cobra Commander was doing, or Destro didn't know about Cobra Law. And I find that sort of delicious, and also what's the word? It's sort of it's a fun tension.
Cool. Let's move on to the last sequence then in the book. Let's sort of transition to that sequence. Back to Mars Industries with Clutch and Hound. Fun that we're getting back to that kind of, I guess, blown up shell of the building, seeing the aftermath of that previous encounter there.
Mark, can you just remind us, this Mars building that we're seeing on page 17, on the top of page 17, is this the same Mars building we saw in G.I. Joe 1 and 2? Is this the same Mars building we saw in the Duke miniseries?
Yeah, I think it's the same main Mars building,
okay.
And it was the site of where the G.I. Joe team last confronted Cobra, and Clutch had been in disguise as a Viper there. So, which in part is why Risk was a little bit wary of him. That did during his time at Cobra. Is there a chance that he was brainwashed and is sort of now a sleeper agent in their midst because he is acting suspiciously? And he is not acting suspiciously because he's a Cobra. It's because he's got a giant robot friend who he's sneaking into the Mars Industries location to see if they can track down some potential leftover energon.
But I just want to say one more thing about the page that comes before this scene. This scene takes up the final 4 pages of the issue, but we did start this subplot on page 5, which Mark and I already talked about. It's got the 3 panels on top of Hound transforming. Something we didn't say that's really nice on the bottom half of the page. And this is one of those, if you want to draw comics, or if you want to write comics and you're thinking about how to describe things for an artist, the bottom half of this page is a really nice example of making something really clear to the audience. Someone is following Clutch. Someone now knows Clutch has a secret. It's not entirely clear if this person, it's Risk, right? We assume it's Risk on page 5, and later on we learn that it is, right?
Yeah, he's got his douchebag shoes on.
Oh man. So it's not entirely, the page does not make clear, and this is not a criticism, I'm just saying the storytelling does not try to make clear if Risk sees Hound or just comes in and sees Clutch leave in a Jeep. I think it's the latter because there's no bigger reaction. And then you read the rest of the issue and you get the bigger reaction. But those final 3 panels are a really nice example of showing a character seeing something happen. We know that this character, Risk, knows that there's a secret, something's off, something's awkward. And then they follow, and that Clutch and Hound don't know they're being followed. Right, just 3 panels of silhouettes, right? But Williamson and Milana are withholding this from the reader. Like, I think we all guessed it's Risk, but it's not shown, right? Because it's from behind and he's silhouetted, and it's just like these 2 extra words in the script would add so much. Also, maybe make it easier for Milano, or maybe make it harder because now he's got to be really careful with his silhouettes. So you can tell sort of what kind of person and vehicle it is, but he can't use any detail. He has to black it all out. But from behind, silhouette, right? Boot starting the motorcycle, silhouette. Motorcycle taking off, it's that same guy, silhouette. Okay, now back to page 17.
Yeah, so he's sneaking in there, and here's the confrontation with Risk. I knew you'd been hiding something, you traitor. Because let's not forget, this isn't coming out of nowhere. Foreshadowing, setting it up. He had that sequence with Duke in probably last issue where he was saying that he thought that Clutch was acting strangely, and Duke just sort of brushed it off, and now he thinks that he's caught him in the act of doing something weird, sneaking off and coming back to the Mars base. But before they get to talk too much about it, they are interrupted as over his shoulder he says, "Explain it to Duke. I'd like to know it as well." And boom, it's Mercer with a what's a collective term for a group of vipers? A nest of vipers. I think Mercer flanked by a nest of vipers.
I think it's a gaggle.
I
think it's a gaggle
of vipers.
I think it's a gaggle of vipers.
A window of vipers. Yes, a gaggle of they sort of migrating for the winter to Destro's base, and what's he say? Two JoJos walk into some wreckage. Sounds like the start of a bad joke. Instead of finding the punchline, I'll just kill ya. There was a question from Craig on Patreon about Mercer specifically, and talking to his bloodthirsty nature here of just threatening to kill these 2 Joes. Last time we saw him kill that guy in the mental hospital or whatever it was in cold blood. Do you think after what we've seen of Mercer so far that he can become a Joe? Is there a redemptive path, or is he too bad? Has he done too nasty a thing to kind of redeem himself from this point?
Maybe Williamson over the next 50 or 100 issues gets to have it both ways. Maybe Mercer does redeem himself and becomes a kind of good guy and helps out, but never becomes a fully fledged Joe, and then sacrifices himself by holding on to the button or the crank or the power cell of the MacGuffin in issue 98 of Energon Universe G.I. Joe, and takes out the Cobra airship headquarters submarine Transformers technology and sacrifices himself. Okay, so back to this actual scene. I noticed that Mercer's like, I'm just going to kill you. And then he definitely doesn't for 3 panels. And then 2 panels later, he says, easier to just kill you and be done with it. And then he definitely doesn't for 2 panels, which I'm glad he doesn't, because I want these 2 Joes to make it through the scene. And I also want to be able to turn to page 20 and have that really fun final page reveal. But I am aware that Mercer's doing that villain thing. You know, it's like, Mr. Bond, well, you're strapped to this operating table and the mechanical laser beam is heading towards your brain, I will explain my whole plot, and I will put the key to the laser machine over here so that if you happen to toss your shoe off your foot after I leave, I'm definitely not going to definitely gonna have to
and
kill
I'll just go and I'll just assume that you've died.
Right.
Yeah.
And actually, to be fair, this G.I. Joe series moves so fast, and mean characters are so cruel. What we have seen more of is sort of the version of the scene where Mercer just kills them. Not literally this character killing someone, but we have seen just someone pulls out their weapon and the next panel shoots or stabs someone. We've seen this many times now in the Energon universe, which does feel different from other continuities. So I thought this was a really good line here. This is the kind of line, the second panel here on page 19, that I really appreciate as someone who reads fiction but does not write fiction. This thing that where writers can keep track of which characters know what at what point in the story. The logic of this is satisfying and impressive to me, where Clutch says to Risk, "Did you tell anyone you were following me?" And Risk says, "Nope." And Clutch says, "Great." And that is what Clutch would be hoping. And I like that Williamson remembers to have these two characters sort of tell us, so that all hope really is lost. There is no chance that in the next panel or on the page turn, like Duke is going to crash through the window and be like, "I followed you like you wanted me to, Risk." It's like, no. Williamson ties off that sort of logical plot thread. These guys are on their own, and they are outnumbered and outgunned, and I think the technical term is screwed. Except
on this page,
right.
But if we turn over the page, what a page turn! What a last page of the comic. Again, they always have great final pages, which is fantastic.
But Williamson does a really nice telescoping of this, which is on the second to last panel of the previous page. Risk knows that something has changed. We know that something has changed. We don't know what it is. I think many of us, I did not, many of us can guess, right? Oh, Risk must see Hound, or oh, Risk must see some thing that's somehow on his side and bad for Mercer and the gaggle of Vipers. But it's really fun to see Risk's expression here as he starts to drop his weapon. He's so unnerved and surprised. What the hell? Right? And then you get to enjoy this kind of irony where Mercer thinks he's still in charge on the final panel of 19. And then
he thinks that Risk is reacting to him. Come on, boys, don't get too scared. But it's what's behind him that is getting the reaction.
Did you say at the beginning of the episode, did I make this up, or did you say it, that the final page has a bit of a horror movie element?
Ooh, I don't know if I did, but yeah, it's interesting. It's a callback as well to the first time that we see Hound, a similar sort of menacing pose, illuminated much like, in a lot of blacks there, in a bit like I don't know, Bernie Wrightson or something, with as if he is like a bit of a horrific character, like a Frankenstein or something.
Yeah, so that word horror, that comes from Ben Abernethy at the beginning of the letters page. He says, "The final page is such an awesome horror movie moment. I love it." Editor Ben Abernethy here. Yeah, so that final page from a previous issue you showed us, Hound his eyes are lit up and his headlights are lit up, which has a different effect here. Here it's just his eyes, so it feels like a reanimated monster, some kind of creeping drone robot, Frankenstein's monster, zombie, you name it. And the fact that he's leaning forward because there's a low ceiling, right? That creates this sense of menace. Maybe he's not as tall, so he doesn't seem as big, but a leaning forward pose is more aggressive. And that it's just his eyes means that if it was his headlights, they would be turning around sort of at the same time. They'd be saying, what the hell, as they turn around.
Yeah.
And so,
you could almost imagine the next beat is like he turns on the headlights, doof, and they're like,
yeah. And if you are a writer if you want to be a writer or are writing, scenes for movies or short films, this could be another sort of writing example where you sort of ask yourself, how do you break down the beats here of us seeing Clutch, Risk, Mercer, the Vipers, Hound, in what order as it is revealed that Hound is there, and sort of how it escalates? Because the next issue might jump ahead 20 seconds and Hound has already kicked and thrown half these Vipers, and Mercer's pointing and yelling, take it down, whatever it is. And, 2 of the Vipers are shooting Hound. Or the next moment could be this same moment. We start back 1 second and Mercer's like, at least put up a fight. And he puts his, fist together and rubs his hands together on the first page of the next issue, because I'm really going to enjoy it. And then you turn the page and the headlights come on and this double page splash of Mercer and all the Vipers reacting. And Mercer gets his chance to say, what the hell? Right. So this is a really...
couple of good call outs in the comments. Scotty Cameron, release the Hound on the Vipers. Release the Hound. Shane Simic reminds us that Clutch surprised Cobra with the hiss tank by turning on his lights and weapons as well. Yeah, Count. Another good one. Soul Bro Ryu. Hound is about to K2SO these Vipers. So the back to Andor and some of the great sequences there with their giant android sort of smashing about the human meatbag type characters. We can't finish up before having a bit of an I Spy on the letters page, Tim, and a particularly great letter there that we probably need to spotlight. Do you want to give it a...
It's funny because we're going to spotlight this letter that spotlights us for spotlighting this letter writer's previous letter. And I think because...
Oh my God, the snake is eating its own tail.
And recently in a G.I. Joe comic book, didn't someone tell us what that's called? This might be my favorite letter not written by you or me. Because... do you want me to read it, or am I going to read part of it?
Yeah, you read the letter.
How about the first paragraph? Because that's the
most important bit of the letter. Yeah.
Hello, Joshua Williamson, Andrea, Milana, and the G.I. Joe team. I'm writing in again to say just how much I've been loving the series. I also appreciated seeing that last night. The funny part is, we had a snowstorm here in Kansas City, and that issue was released. So all the local comic shops on both the Kansas and Missouri sides were closed when that issue came out because of inclement weather. I had to wait a few weeks to get my copy of number 3. So I didn't know my letter was published until it was read on the Talking Joe podcast, which is a podcast I know the team behind the series has all been which is a podcast I know the team behind has all been interviewed on at various points. That marks the second time I'd been alerted that I had read that I had a letter published in a G.I. Joe comic from listening to a G.I. Joe podcast. The first time was listening to the Joe on Joe podcast with issue 303 of Hama's run as part of Joe's Cold Open discussing G.I. Joe news items. In that case, it was a matter of listening to that podcast on my way to the local comic store and hearing that I had my letter printed before making my purchase. All right, enough of that. On to the meat and potatoes. So, Scotty, good on you for continuing to write month after month. Congrats on getting another letter printed. Congrats to us for getting the name of the podcast mentioned again in the letters page. I would like to think, but could not prove, that every time Talking Joe gets mentioned in the Straight Shooters or Postbox the Pit letters pages, an angel gets its wings and our follower count goes up.
And I've done specifically for this because it's a great letter and a great listener. Let's go. It's the listener of the week.
Congrats, Scotty. Were there any other? That was the big highlight of the. That was the big highlight of the letters page.
Yeah. So maybe let's look ahead to what else we can expect to come. So Void Rivals, as I say, will be out this coming week. As things seem to be escalating in the Void Rivals universe, things are coming to a bit of a head with the various different factions coming together on that. Issue number 22 out this coming Wednesday, August the 27th. And Transformers continues, issue 24 on sale September the 10th. This will be Daniel Warren Johnson's final issue, so I think we can expect a bit of an extra bombastic issue when that one comes out. And then September the 17th, about a month from now, will be the next issue of G.I. Joe from the Energon Universe, issue number 11. And then, of course, we will have a Real American Hero alongside that. So we will definitely be covering that. And yeah, same time, same channel. That's the thing. So what else do we talk about? Yeah, we talk about if this is first time finding Talking Joe, just a reminder that you can find us in the usual places. talkingjoe.co.uk is the website. That points you in the direction of all of the places we are. So the website, the Facebook group where you can discuss the latest content, see covers and news as we find out the details. We're on Twitter, Instagram, and so on. We are also on patreon.com, patreon.com/talkingjoe. So a big thanks to Richard, Sam, Bill, Justin, Rob, Shane, Simon, Chris, Joe, Craig, Frank, Mike, D, Shane V2. This one is almost exactly the same as V1, but has an additional shoulder pauldron, plus Infinite Entertainment, Patrick, and Gary V. They are all getting early and ad-free access to episodes, as well as some exclusive content. Here is the new little jingle I did for that.
Nothing beats the Talking Joe podcast, and right now Patreon members are getting early access to episodes and extra content. Listen now with Talking Joe, a podcast you can trust.
Tim, where can you be found when you are not on the beach or talking to me about all things G.I. Joe?
youtube.com/@AtomicAbe, Hub Comics, and a realamericanbook.com.
Very good. So I think that is us basically done. But before we go, is there anything that you would like to remind us, Tim?
Nobody Beats Talking Joe, an international podcast.